Okay, so I wanted to continue on with the talks about the primal self experience. Now, I didn't mention it in the first recording that I went through, and I've talked about this in written posts. I've talked about this with Kim when I interviewed him, but I did go through the experience of passing the 95th level initiation and moving into the stage of personal Christhood. That pretty much was a very significant shift where, I just dropped that sense of self-focus. I let go of the spiritual self that I built up. It's very hard to let go of when you're in it, you know what I mean? But then once you let go of it, it's just, such a burden is gone, because you take the pressure off yourself when you finally sort of let go of the self-focus, and you let go of the self that you've built up, that you believe is going to sort of, you believe that's, your Christic potential. You believe that that's it, that's the ultimate. So one of the key sort of shifts in my mind and awareness was that, it was really, really important to finally grasp this, that there's nothing ultimate. There is no ultimate consciousness. There is no ultimate truth. There is no ultimate level you're going to reach. You know what I mean? There's no there. You're never going to get there. You know what I mean? It's just this constant flow and the knowledge that, I of myself can do nothing. There's just this, it's like a humility, but, always prepared to look, always prepared to sort of reach higher and know that, I don't know the truth. There's always a higher point to reach. I can always reach up for help from the masters. And so it's a significant turning point. And so that shift, I think, is what prepared me to be ready to finally surrender and work through the primal trauma. Now, the first thing is like my spiritual self had a belief that, I'd resolve the primal trauma. And I hadn't really thought about it or anything that much. Once I moved beyond the 96 level, it didn't really cross my mind whether I have or I haven't. But anyway, so, it's such a significant shift when you do move beyond the 96 level. But then what happened was, this is not so long ago, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a bit longer, that all of a sudden, I went apeshit. And it was my primal self, okay? It was the birth trauma, it was the primal self. It just reared up, and because I'd been through such a significant shift, it was very easy for me to go, oh, I know what that is. I don't want it anymore. I am not going to carry this any longer, because my commitment is to raising my consciousness and helping others where possible. You know what I mean? And the primal self will only sabotage that. So once you're accepting that, I of my own self can do nothing, that, I have no ultimate answer, I always need that guidance from beyond, it's much, much easier to go, oh, I'm going to let this go now. So notwithstanding, it was a shock when it turned up. Because, as I described in the previous video, my primal self was just wicked, sabotage, just self-sabotage, sabotage the outer situation, just nothing good came from it. But, like an addiction, just it's very difficult to let go of. It's not easy. So, all right, so I've prepared you for that. And what I did want to sort of speak about in this video is so the primal self, the belief that I held was that I can't trust anyone, and I cannot trust myself around people. And so when you understand, when you understand like the primal self is something that we create in order to just cope with being on earth, because we go through this primal trauma experience where we are shocked. We're only at the 48th level when this happens. So, we're very innocent. We really don't have the wherewithal and the experience. We just don't have, we haven't built up enough. We just haven't built ourselves up enough yet to just find any way to cope with this, So we create this primal self. It's a means to cope with life on earth, It's just like, I just had to, and you've done it too. We've all done it, We've all created one of these. And so you might wonder, like, Neptune, why, how on earth does saying I can't trust anyone, how on earth is that going to help you cope, help your primal self cope? Because I don't want to own it, no, even though I know I'm not it. But but I can see the crazy rationale behind this belief. And so for my primal self, it was just by being able to have this blanket, I cannot trust anyone. It's going to stop me from being shocked ever again, because if I can't trust anyone on earth, then it's done, because inevitably people will be untrustworthy. They will act in untrustworthy ways. I'll be betrayed. Like everything will be abandoned and abused, and I'll do whatever I do. Like, so it's easy just to cast this blanket net over the top of everything and everybody, and I even included myself in there, that can't trust anyone here. That way I won't be shocked. Nothing can shock me because I'm already ready for it. You know what I mean? This is the thinking behind the primal self. Like, it thinks, yeah, there we go. We got this done. No problem. You're never going to be shocked ever again if you've got like this, this nice little safety net, this world view, and it's just going to, it'll get you through. It'll get you through, because clearly anything can happen on this planet. Clearly, I cannot know who to trust. So just better to, be expecting that. Be expecting to not be able to trust. But, it ends up becoming, even though, it is a coping mechanism, it ends up becoming like this incredible straitjacket, because the primal self has to have that belief validated in order to exist. The primal self has to go out of its way to prove that people cannot be trusted. And that's what my primal self would do. It would attract that. It would attract many, many untrustworthy people. But, it was my mind, I was putting it out there that this is what I wanted. I wanted people to be untrustworthy. So I attracted that, and I accepted it, or my primal self accepted it, until there came a point when I really realized, it's time to sort of, knuckle down on the path and start healing. And I knew one of the first things I had to do was just sort of, break this pattern of accepting in, less than, and to sort of, find ways to sort of begin moving forward in the path and start creating situations where I was surrounding myself and attracting people who, I could trust. And that's the way it's been ever since then. So that was just the core of what I wanted for this second video. Just wanted to sort of give a little bit of that background, because also in the recent, so I'm assuming most people who watch this are Ascended Master students, and in the recent conference from, it was in Kazakhstan, the masters talked a bit about how this is what happens after you've made it past the 96 level, that it comes time to start looking at this, to start looking at, what was your reasoning before you came here, as an avatar, and to, really begin to look at that initial trauma. Like, it's I wasn't ready for this. I didn't know it all happened kind of back to front. It just kind of shocked me, but I can see why it's better for it to come up after you've passed the 96 level. It's much easier to address it because, you haven't got that resistance anymore. You haven't got this, you're not turning away from the teacher anymore. You're accepting, I need the teacher, I need the guru to help me get beyond here. So this just this gentle acceptance that, I of my own self can do nothing, and, I'm open. So I'm glad to have it's all done and dusted and everything, but I will come back and talk a little bit more. But so I think it's interesting that the masters finally, they've been talking about the 96 level initiations for, the last couple of conferences, and this one they finally started saying, now be ready for this once you get into the journey of personal Christhood. So it seems to have worked well that I've started recording these videos, so I can share with you my experience about it. Okay. That's it. See ya.